How's it going? All right, there we go. My name is Angel Garcia, and I am a pastor in the United Methodist Church. I am not appointed here to St. Paul's, but I do have the privilege of calling St. Paul's my home because of the fact that we love it here. So, for some of you who have been here long enough, maybe more than 10 years, right? You might remember me from my days on staff when I was in youth ministry. Do we have some of those pictures, that collage up? So that's me in our time in youth ministry. I got every dime out of that T-Rex that I could in my time in ministry. But St. Paul's holds a very special place in not just my heart, but my family's heart. This is where we were built up, we were poured into, and eventually sent out to where we spent some time in Springfield leading a couple of churches out there. But the connection here is one that we absolutely adore, simply because of the fact that this place is home. We will always be connected to it. My wife and I, we actually got married on this stage over 8 years ago, right? And so, we're always going to be connected there. That baptismal you see over there, our kids broke that in, right? And that's not saying anything theologically, right? That doesn't make the process of baptism, once you break it in, more holy or sacred. If you knew Alyssa, you would be like, yeah. But that they were baptized here. So we're always going to be connected to this place. So all that to say that it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to be able to be here with you all today as we wrap up our series on the 7 woes. And for the past several weeks, we've been discussing these 7 woes that Jesus leans into as he is having a really difficult conversation with the Pharisees. And what I have appreciated about this, it's the fact that even though this could be like a harsh critique, there is still truths and realities that we can learn from. And even though it's directed to these religious leaders, all of us can benefit from learning to what Jesus is calling these Pharisees out for. And the fact that we haven't shied away from it is something that I really, really appreciate it. Because of the fact that today, if I could be so bold, I think today's woes are really, really intense. I mean, Jesus really lays it on thick. And so I just wanted to jump into the text right away. So it says this: "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside also will be clean." Not done yet. He says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." Ouch. That's pretty rough. And if you would bear with me for just 1 minute, as I read this passage, I'm an elder millennial, right? I'm a kid that was born in the 80s, so I'm a millennial, but I'm an older one, so Gen Z has called me elder millennial at this point already, since I'm an older millennial. But for better or worse, I grew up with the internet. As the internet was growing, so was I. We were tied to the hip. So that means that I nerded out to all sorts of internet culture and subcultures, which part of that was memes and GIFs. Everybody familiar with what those are, right? A meme is basically just a picture with a little quip on there or something to relay a quick message. Not great for effective conversations, right? As you see on social media. And then a GIF is just something that is that same image or maybe a different image, but it's just an emotion loop. So in my brain, as an elder millennial, as I hear about this verse, there's a meme, a GIF that comes to my mind that I wanted to throw up there. Anybody familiar with this meme or GIF? Some of you? Yes, raising of hands, love it. So let's do a little bit of art. This is the modern art appreciation right now. How many of you know what that kind of entails or what it's often used as? Anyway, yes, Luke. Yes, go for it. We're participating right now. That's actually really good. Did you hear him? The best way to explain it is saying, "Oh." That's pretty good. I mean, that's on point because of the fact that's most often used when when somebody might say something, like a little quip, a jab, maybe even an insult, and then you've got the rest of your, group around you just saying, oh my goodness, look at that hype right there. Everybody else is just like, I can't believe that was just said. So as I'm reading these woes, this is the image that comes to my mind. I'm weird, I know. But again, elder millennial, this is just the way my brain works. You were probably expecting something far more theological, but there it is. So this image, it creates this sense of shock and wow, I can't believe that was just said. It's something that we often use for maybe even insults. Now, I'm not trying to say that Jesus is being a bully here, right? By any stretch. But this is something that was really it cut to the Pharisees' heart and cut very deep. I wanted to give you a quick example of when someone might use this meme, because I could have used it earlier this week. Actually, a week ago on Sunday, we had spring break. The kids had spring break this past week. So it really changed our schedule, my wife and I's schedule. Normally what we do is she'll drop off our youngest, I'll drop off our oldest, and then I go to the gym real quick and then come back, right, to get to work from home and all that fun stuff. So this week, I kept trying to prep our kids, saying, hey, just in case, if you sleep in and you find me not here, I'm at and they'll say, gym. I'm like, sweet, we're almost there. And then I'll be back soon, right? I've been kind of dropping little hints here and there that would be the case. And so on Sunday night last week, Kayla's putting the girls to bed, and I walk into the room really quick. One last reminder, right? Because tomorrow morning, there's a chance that this might happen. Kaylee's old enough to watch her sister. All that's great. No harm. And so I proceed to ask the girls, if daddy's not here in the morning, where is he at? At the gym. Yes. And then I ask the second question, and I'll be back. And before I could say another word, our oldest, Kaylee, goes, looking the exact same. Results take time. If she hadn't got me so good, I would have been so mad, but I was really proud, honestly. And then to double up, Alyssa, our youngest, was observing. I didn't say this during the first service, but on Thursday, same thing, only I went during my lunch hour really quick, and she said it too, right? Because she heard that it was funny, so now my whole house thinks, you go to the gym and nothing happens, Angel. So, great. So, it's this right here. As Jesus is communicating these woes to these Pharisees, that's the image that comes into my mind. That's the image that I would have shown. Should I have posted that on Facebook? That's the image that I would have used, and Kaylee would have been in the middle looking all proud, just got him. But for us to truly appreciate what is being said here, why I'm using a meme, for us to truly appreciate it, first we have to take a step back, and we have to remind ourselves of who these Pharisees were. The Pharisees were basically a Jewish religious movement or group of people who were big on almost to a legal precision standpoint. They were really big on the Jewish text and the law, especially when it came to maintaining strict purity laws. Even in their name, Pharisee, perishim, it means separated ones, the separated ones. And most scholars will tell us that when they're talking about separated, it means that they're separated from uncleanliness, because these are the cleanliness guys, right? So keep in mind, they weren't priests, they weren't rabbis, they were lay teachers of the law. And even though they weren't those things, right, with the official credentials and everything, they still had so much influence. They still had this power and this authority that people continually kept coming to them for direction, for guidance, for how to move forward in how to stay clean and how to avoid being unclean. So the Pharisees, for example, they would have been the guys that would call out anything and everything. They were strict, rule-following people. Basically, when it came to the concept of holiness, about how to live a life worthy of God, they saw it as strictly outward rule following. You want to be holy, you got to follow these rules and these things only, and that's how you become holy. That's a quick snapshot of them. But when it came to holiness, I think Jesus had something else completely in mind outside of just this outward rule following. Let's go back to the text. It says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will also be clean." Jesus, after calling out the Pharisees, already with all the woes that we have covered, then proceeds to equate these leaders to cups and dishes, which sounds a little bit weird, but when you start to see the imagery that he's trying to paint, you get to see why. He's saying, look, the outside, super clean. The inside, not so much, right? If I were to hand you a plate that on the outside was looking really nice, but then Cynthia, I handed you that plate and it was just covered in mud and grossness, and I was like, here's this steak. Would you like to eat it? I'm good, right? But why were they unclean on the inside? Two characteristics that Jesus throws out there: greed and self-indulgence. Now, if I could put my Bible nerd hat on for a quick second, the Greek words for those are hyparge and akrasia. These are super important to understand because when we just hear greed or self-indulgence, like we stay on a certain level of depth. But in the Greek, once you start breaking down those words, it gets way more complicated, way more insulty than that. So, the word hyparge, which this is greed, right? It carries this sense of robbery, extortion, taking things by force, or even exploitation. Some scholars will tell us that the picture that Jesus is trying to paint is one of grabbing what belongs to others. Basically, Jesus is saying that these Pharisees are using their power, their influence, their religious position to take advantage of people. Friends, that's not just greed. That is spiritual and theological malpractice. And then he doubles down with self-indulgence, akrasia. That basically translates to a lack of self-control, but it also refers to excess, moral weakness, unrestrained appetite. It also communicates other things like gluttony, luxury, pleasure-seeking, or a lack of self-discipline. And so what Jesus is trying to communicate with these two words in particular, it is that to you Pharisees, you say the right things. You know what to do. You do the right things. You go through the process of the right things. But on the inside, you can't even control your own desires. Why? Because the inside has yet to be cleaned. You're focusing too much on the outside. Again, the focus and the process is wrong. The outside doesn't lead to the inside. It's the inside being transformed that leads to the outside. So let's jump to the next verse. It says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." Friends, I can't stress to you enough how much Jesus doubles down with this imagery, because a whitewashed tomb to these Pharisees would be one of the biggest insults that he could give them. Because these Pharisees, remember, they're all about spiritual laws that lead into cleanliness, right? But this whitewashed tomb, even though it looks nice on the outside, for Jewish people back then, historically speaking, to touch a tomb would make you automatically unclean, even if it was on accident, right? So that first song that we sang earlier today, Dancing on the Grave, right? The Pharisees would have been in the back just yelling, "Unclean! No, don't do it, don't do it!" Kind of a buzzkill, but still. So these whitewashed tombs, they would be made white with lime purposely, So then that way, Jewish people could see that and say, oh, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to go through this process of becoming unclean and then cleaning again. And so if they happen to do that, it would take them 7 days to become clean again. To call these Pharisees, who focused on purity laws of cleanliness, whitewashed tombs, not only was saying that they were unclean, but that they were running the risk of making others around them unclean. And that's why you see such a sharp critique to the point where Jesus is calling them wicked. These people who were supposed to be helping to draw God near to them, who are supposed to help people become clean, to become holy. Jesus is there basically saying, even though you know those things and you do those things, you are morally corrupt. They were ignoring God's authority by not having their hearts aligned with that of God's heart for people, and rather focusing on an outward visible sign than an inside or inward transformation. So, friends, I know at this point you might be asking yourself, Angel, so what? Did you just come here to talk about memes and GIFs and the historical cultural context of a good zinger from Jesus? No, of course not. I think this text in particular is so vastly important because of the fact of what Jesus is leaning into. And I'm not talking about the institution that the Pharisees were creating for the church, and I'm not talking about I am talking about the institution of the church, but I'm also talking about each and every single one of us individually. This is important for us as well. Because if we're honest with ourselves and we take a good hard look at church history, we can see that time and time again, the church has gone astray and missed the mark, all because we were focused on rules or acting like Pharisees, when in reality we should have been allowing the love of God transform us from the inside out. And it affects believers and non-believers alike, to the point where they don't want to have anything to do with God because of that, and because of the church's actions, because of our actions. A couple years back, I was at a youth and children's ministry conference where the speaker said some statistics that I was just like, oh my goodness, how could that be real? And back then, as this research was coming out, the trust in the institution of the church was at an all-time low, right? To our credit, we've done a little bit of work. We've started calling people out, holding people accountable. We've raised some of that trust. But at this point, when this study was being done, we just barely beat out the government as an institution of trustworthiness. Yeah. And so as I started thinking about, like, why is that? Why are we as the church wrestling with this? It didn't take long for me to reflect on the fact that if you just turn on the news, you look at social media, you see time and time again where either the church as a whole or its leaders have caused harm to entire people groups. Our history is riddled with it, where the church was unfortunately on the wrong side of history, or we divided because of issues like that. And to add icing to the cake, the person that told us this statistic, not even 2 years later, ended up in quite the scandal themselves and caused a lot of harm because of it. It's important for us to wrestle with this because we, therefore the church, we wrestle with greed. We wrestle with self-indulgence. We wrestle with this lust for power or control. It's just kind of in our nature sometimes. And that's why I believe that if Matthew 23 and its woes are diagnosing a problem, then the fruits of the Spirit are talking about a cure or a solution. Pastor Kayla talked about it if you were here just 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to go just a little bit more in depth. In Galatians 5, the fruits of the Spirit, the inner workings, the transformation that happens inside of us from the Spirit, they are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These traits directly counter what these woes were describing. We have an image really quick for you to check out. Just look at how they don't match. They don't jive, right? I can't believe I just said jive. Where did that come from? But on one side, you have things that are very self-centered, very self-focused. On the other side, you have things that are very selfless, very sacrificial, thinking of others. In the Methodist tradition, Jesus' criticism of the Pharisees could be best described as something that John Wesley discussed as the danger of an external religion without an inward grace. Let me say that again. The danger of an external religion without an inward grace. This is what he was accusing the Pharisees of, basically. In this inward grace, we can use the fancy word sanctification sometimes. It's the process of being made holy as we grow in the likeness of Christ. As we grow deeper in love with God, we grow deeper in love with God's children. That's how it should work. And all of that starts with a transformation from the inside. And I can't stress how pivotal it is for right now, for us individually and collectively as a church body who call ourselves believers, to wrestle with this. All of us, myself included, to take a good hard look in the mirror and ask ourselves a couple of questions. First one being, am I just going through the motions, doing and saying the right things, or am I continually being transformed by the love of God? Second question, are my actions and interactions reflecting that of the Pharisees or of the fruits of the Spirit? This is the question that I like to ask myself before I post anything on Facebook when it comes to slightly controversial. It helps me, honestly. Because there's times where I want to say things out of anger or frustration or just hopelessness, and it's not going to do any good. So I lean towards the fruits of the Spirit to hopefully find some common ground. Third question, when do I let rules matter to me more than people? Not if, when. Do I see people as rules needing to be followed or children of God in need of better fruit? And the last one, how do I show the fruits of the Spirit with people I disagree with or even get frustrated by? Now, a great starting point for all of this would be to just look at Scripture, look at Jesus, look at what the Holy Spirit does throughout the New Testament. Those are great avenues. And if you want other avenues as well, you can just look around you as well. Because the Holy Spirit's constantly at work and working within each and every single one of us, therefore producing hopefully good fruit. A couple years ago, I was at the Atlanta airport. I get really bad travel anxiety. Anybody else, especially when it's on plane? I'm the guy that shows up 4 hours early sometimes if I'm on my own. And then not only that, I will walk to the gate to visit, physically see it with my own eyes as if it didn't exist if I didn't see it with my own eyes. Two things. Atlanta traffic, game changer. Atlanta airport, don't get me started. So I get to my gate 4 hours early after check through took maybe 10, 15 minutes. I was there. I was good. Whatever came my way next, I could handle. So as I'm sitting there, this elderly couple from, I presume is India, shows up. Gentleman is in a wheelchair, wife is walking next to him. Airport help is helping them there. And as we're sitting there, smile, pleasantries, that sort of a thing. Obviously, English isn't their first language, and so we really can't have much of a conversation. All of a sudden, I see that our gate changes. Not only our gate, but our terminal, which again, Atlanta airport, not great. We've got plenty of time, though. So as I sit there, I think to myself, I've got one of two options. I could get up and just go ahead and make my way over there, or I could try and use my phone to Google Translate with my new friends. Hey, friends, we need to go, and we need to go on an adventure and try and find our new gate. And so after a little bit, right, we kind of have that happen. I proceed to get airport help to wheel him across. And I strike up a conversation with the gentleman who's helping us. His name is Jerome, if I could remember correctly. And Jerome and I are talking, and after a while, he just kind of looks at me and he says, So how do you know these people? Oh, I don't. So you just decided that you wanted to help them out? Yeah, like, why wouldn't I? And then he looks at me and goes, okay, cool. I appreciate that. And he goes, so what do you do? Nobody knew I was a pastor there. But I look at him and I say, I'm a pastor. And he goes, oh, that makes sense. Which, honestly, the way the church has gone, they could have gone one of two ways. His answer could have been one of two different things. And then here's the kicker. He goes, what's your name? And if he had the first reaction with the pastor comment, the moment I told him my name was Angel, he just goes, what? You mean to tell me that your name is Angel, you're a pastor, and you're just helping complete strangers out? Yes, it's exactly what I'm telling you. And he goes, that's awesome, man. This world needs more of that. And I don't tell you that story to make it sound like I'm sort of hero. What I did to help them cost me absolutely nothing. I tell you that story because of the fact that so often in my time, in my life, when I have looked to others who I look up to, I care for, I respect, I love, I have seen the fruits of the Spirit in them because God is at work in them as well. And that has inspired me. I have seen the fruits of the Spirit here at this place. I have seen the fruit of the Spirit of kindness in a Nancy Hampton for the last 2+ decades, has served relentlessly, helping people with anything and everything that they might need. I have seen the fruit of the Spirit in a Kayla Horn, who fights and advocates for peace for the poor, the marginalized, the outcast. I have seen the fruits of the Spirit of faithfulness in a Britton Fields, who has moved his entire family from Kansas City to Joplin. Because of our itinerant system, I have seen it in Dakota and the rest of the tech crew in their patience with us as we try and organize all of this. I've seen it in Aaliyah and the joy that she has as she serves in student ministry and that she imparts to them as well. I have seen it in Caleb in the gentleness as he tries to go into a new ministry of children's ministry and teach and love them as well. I have seen it in each and every single one of you as you show the love, the goodness, and the self-control as you try and live into the mission of this church. And if there's anything I could encourage you with today, friends, it is that as we, as a body of believers, if we could just join together and we can allow the love of God to continue to transform us, then we can continue to show others good fruit in a world that desperately needs good fruit. Let's pray. Gracious God, I thank you for today. I thank you so much for the fact that you are always at work in us. You continually love us. You are patient with us. You show us the grace that we sometimes don't even deserve. God, I pray that each and every single one of us be moved, that we continue to fall deeper in love with you and continue to fall in love with others, that we see them as your children and not as rivals or enemies or different, but that each and every single one of us are connected. So God, I pray that we just go out and we produce good fruit.